This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just the base.
YouTube, what is up? I'm your OhmBoy Josh, back at you with another installment of CoilWars, Civil Wars, a tournament-style competition where we've started out with 16 builders and we're working our way down to the final 2, passing the winners of each round on to the next and the next until only 2 remain and battle for the title of Civil Wars champion. Last week we started out with 16 builders and now we're down to 8 builders. A little more than a week ago, actually. If you've been watching my other videos, I've mentioned it already, but I'll mention it here again. Basically, I had a local photo gig, which was eating up a lot of my time, and I wasn't expecting it to do quite what it did, but I'm all caught up now, and we're getting back on track with Civil Wars. Last time we started out on the left side of the bracket, so I think mix it up. This time we'll start on the right side of the bracket. Why not? First up, we have Daniel Hollis up against Proby 300. These gentlemen have been tasked with creating staple staggered fuse variations. Here Hollis has taken 6 strands of ribbon in the center, staggered over it with 40 gauge, and he's placed 3 strands of ribbon on either side of that, framed it with 28 gauge, and fused into the gaps of the center with 40 gauge as well, creating a Staggerton variation. As his pseudonym suggests, Color Shot Coils created a very colorful coil here, mounted it up in a Twisted Messes variant. 6 wraps of pure rainbow is what he has here. Beautiful, beautiful colors from Daniel Hollis. That's that stainless steel really bringing out those bright blues and golds and reds here. Richie Oliver, also known as Proby 300, created a staple staggered fused grooved cage build. It is 6 plies of mixed ribbon wire, 4 strands of 0.4 stainless steel, 2 strands of 0.4 Kanthal, 28 gauge frames, Kanthal frames, staggered with 40 gauge nichrome and fused with 40 gauge stainless steel. Then he's paralleled that with polished 22 gauge nichrome and then cage wrapped it in 2 strands of 30 gauge stainless steel. A cage build, for those of you that don't know, is when you take 2 coils and stack them on top of each other and then create a cage between them by creating a parallel wrap between the gaps over both coils there. What immediately catches my eye about Richie's build here, though, is how he has sort of a staggered cage. It's a very interesting cage that I've never actually seen done before. Instead of just a single wire between the wraps bridging the 2 coils together, what he's done here is he's paralleled the wrap up against the staple staggered fuse clapton here, and then into the parallel between the wraps of the parallel, he's taken 2 more wires and he's made a cage out of those 2 wires. I can't say I've ever seen it done quite that way, and the color combinations that it creates are just gorgeous. The deep blues and the oranges in particular are just incredible to look at. Really interesting work mounted up in the Goon RDA. Judges felt that both Hollis and Oliver had some beautiful colors in their builds, but the technical difficulty behind Richie's build just pushed it just over the top. Just the way that that cage was accomplished, just had to give it to Richie on that one. So congratulations, Proby 300, you're moving on to the next round. In the battle of Chris Charles versus Randy Swanigan, builders were tasked with creating altered bridge coils. Altered bridge coils are, if you don't remember from the first season of CoilWars, they're generally an answer to creating quad coils and setting them up as a single coil build. It's a very unusual way of building, akin to extension builds in a lot of ways. They kind of fall underneath that category for me. Randy created a bridge out of 10 plies of 0.3 nichrome and 26 gauge nichrome frames, and he staggered and fused it with 34 gauge and 38 gauge respectively, 317L. The extension he used was 20 gauge Canthal. Now the way that Randy chose to create his bridge is a bit out of the ordinary from even the ordinary for bridge coils. There's no coils coming out the ends of his bridge here. He just has this bridge set up as an actual extension build with a bridge running between the extensions. So it's not going to work to increase the resistance in any way. I'm not so sure that this would honestly be functional, functional alter bridge, looking at it, because of the way that it's set up. All that's going to light up here is the bridge itself. That being said, it's still a very colorful build. I like the way that it was accomplished with the ribbon down the middle, and I would love to see a top cap fit down on that. It's an interesting build. I like the colors that he got out of it, and some of these shots, the way that he did them with this bit of color distortion in the corners, it's actually pretty interesting for some reason. I actually just like the shot itself. Chris's build, however, appears to be a proper and functional alter bridge coil. You can see how a lot of the wear on the coils themselves, the 4 bits of coil coming out of the bridge, are actually do appear to be oxidized in a certain manner, and the middle of the bridge doesn't appear to have been oxidized as much. So it appears to be a much more functional alter bridge in that it's only lighting up the coils. So you look at the way that this bridge comes together, the way that the coils are attached to the posts, and also they make up the actual frame of this bridge that he's created in the middle. This bridge is actually really a beautiful bridge. He's created a bit of corrugated staple down the middle with, I want to say, 3 plies of ribbon on either side, and then he's fused that together with a bit of clapton over ribbon wire in 2 different sizes by the look of it. I really like the bridge itself, the way that the corrugated ribbon wire is going to help to disperse that heat more, the way that there's a lot of mass created by the ribbon wire fusing over the frames as well as the core staple wire. The idea behind the altered bridge is that the bridge itself should not glow up red when you're dry firing it, only the coils coming off the frame of the bridge, the 4 coils there, should be what's lighting up. Judges gave this particular round to Chris Charles. They felt that the overall functionality of Chris's build as well as the overall cleanliness of Chris's build pushed him just over the top on this one. On the other side of the bracket, we had Matt Price versus Richard Farrar. These builders were tasked with creating my personal favorite, hybrid coils. Hybrid coils can be both symmetrical or asymmetrical. The idea is that it's a single coil composed of various styles of wraps, whether that is aliens and enigmas, whether that is staggered fuse claptons and staples, whatever it is. The idea is that there are multiple different wraps encompassed in one single coil, and they're my favorite coils to look at, to be honest with you. I just find them fascinating. Richard Farrar started out his hybrid by choosing a very intricate core. The core of his hybrid consists of 2 strands of 28 gauge stainless steel 316L frames, 1 strand of 0.4 by 0.4 nichrome square wire, 6 strands of 0.4 Canthal ribbon wire, and 4 strands of nichrome ribbon wire. So a good mix of wires there. For his wraps, he has 4 wraps of stitched interlocking Enigma Alien, 2 strands of 38 gauge nichrome stitched with 44 gauge nichrome, and then he has 1 wrap of micro Clapton Alien, which is 32 gauge nichrome under 40 gauge stainless steel 316L. He has that set up 5 wraps, dual coiled, 3mm internal diameter, and it ohms out at a low 0.07 ohms. I'll take this time to remind you to exercise safety and precautions in all of your builds. Know your Ohm's law, know your battery safety. Matt Price went the asymmetrical route with his hybrid coil. For his core, Matt Price went with a rather wide frame staple build. I'm guessing it's 2 strands of 28 gauge for the frames, and if I count them, If I count them, I want to say it is 20 plies of ribbon wire down the middle. I would venture that it's probably 0.3 ribbon wire, 0.4 ribbon wire. It's hard to say. And from left to right, he has a single wrap of just plain old alien wire. The middle two wraps are interlocking enigma aliens. And on the far right, he has a loosely wrapped interlocking alien. He's got it all mounted up in the goon. Judges had to give this one to Farrer. They thought that this build in particular was possibly the best build of this entire round of Civil Wars battles of all of our competitors put together. The complexity of the core itself, the intricacy of the stitched interlocking enigma alien, cleanliness of the micro clapton alien, everything about the build is just gorgeous. Excellent work from Richard Farrar here. And last up we had Tim Haynes versus Chris Tibbs Miller. These builders were tasked with creating coils using only simple clapton coils. Tim created a clapton with 32 gauge over 28 gauge and then claptoned over that in 36 gauge and then in 42 gauge. The 42 and 32 are Canthal, and then paralleled up to that he has a 28 gauge nichrome clapton with 36 gauge and 42 gauge micro clapton. Then paralleled up against that, he's created a micro clapton of 42 gauge over 36 gauge over 28 gauge. So a sort of a clapception paralleled up here against a multi-claptoned clapton. I, for one, love the way that this coil was photographed, particularly this one shot, just the stark black, and the metal just really pops against that black background. The lighting on it is just beautiful light, man. Beautiful build, beautiful shot. Tibbs create... Hey, Jack, what's up, buddy? You want to come sit with me? Yeah? Come on. Come here. All right. You fat fuck. Come here. You good boy. You are. Tibbs created another cage build here. It is a Clapton chain, parallel 28 gauge Canthal cores with 34 gauge stainless steel 316L and 32 gauge Canthal over them. And he's paralleled those coils up and created two coils, one on top of the other. And then for his cage, he's created a Clapton chain. Two Clapton chains here by the look of it. One is a 36 gauge Canthal core with a 40 gauge nichrome, and the other one is a 40 gauge Canthal core with a 40 gauge nichrome Clapton. And then he's sort of reverse twisted those together to create a chain coil and use that as his cage. It's a lot of wire, bro. A lot of wire. Wow. He managed to get some interesting color out of this build too. I see some pops of orange, some pops of blue, some pops of purple, mainly in the corners here. Judges felt that Tim's build was particularly clean, particularly tight. They had to give this round to Tim Haynes. So congratulations, Tim. You'll be moving on to the next round. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the next round of Civil Wars. We're down to 4 builders. It's going to be Richard Farrar against Tim Haynes and Richie Oliver up against Chris Charles. Once again, I'd like to extend a special thanks to the judges of the Civil Wars competition, Taxi Jim 71, Brahma Sutra 68, and XL Coils, all amazing builders. You can find their work on Instagram, and also the admins over at the CoilWars page who have made all this possible. Patrick, our latest admin, it's a pleasure to have him join the team. We are also blessed to have Richie Oliver, Mr. Alien Pro B300, as well as one of the competitors of this competition. Jeffrey Panzer, owner of Coil Society Wire, and of course, Mr. Dwayne Rambo, co-creator of CoilWars himself. And also thank you to Ndivine83 VBC, former competitor of the CoilWars competition, Season 1 competitor, and creator of the artwork you see on the CoilWars bracket itself. But of course, no episode of CoilWars would be complete without a build demonstration, and today, well, I haven't built it yet. We're going to build it now. I wanted to put something together for the Pulse BF22 RDA from Tony B. Tony B and Vandy Vape teamed up to bring us this RDA, and I've been dying to try it. And everyone keeps asking me, have I tried it yet? Well, no, I was really busy, and for like 2 weeks I was working on this photo project locally, and blah, 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 and we're finally back, and I can finally build something in this. So here we go. Tony B's YouTube channel has been one of my favorites for a long time. I think he does really well put together videos, and I think that this design, from what I've seen of it, just what I've seen of it, first impressions, I'm pretty excited to put something in here, I gotta tell you. A squonker device with a postless connection where the wells are actually sunk down to actually soak up the juice that's being pushed up from the bottom, and a really unique airflow system, which I would say is somewhat similar to kind of like one of the top caps you can get for the Kennedy, like the Gremlin cap, I think is what they used to call it, or the, yeah, something like that. That's what it reminds me of, the Gremlin cap that you can get for the Kennedy. Very, very cool looking RDA, just first impressions. I kind of can't wait to put something in here, and I've been excited to for some time, so let's get to it. So for today's build, I decided to throw together a groove-fused Staggerton. I've never made a groove-fused coil before, and you know, for coil, I had a build like ready to go that you'll see in a video, like a review that I'm doing for, I think it's the Rabies, but it's just an alien coil. And for CoilWars, I like to do things a little outside the box, things I've never done before. So I've thrown together Staggertons before, but I've never done anything groove-fused. Basically, a groove fuse, the concept is, instead of having a stagger that you're laying the fused wire into, you're actually just sort of, the tension of the wire is what's pushing the wire into the gap of the original fuse, if that makes sense. It will. Anyway, so basically I created a staple coil. So the way I like to stack ribbon is usually in groups of 4. Take 5 lengths off the spool, and then I fold them in half, and I fold them again, and that, you know, creates 4 plies. Well, I do that, except this one I wanted 12 plies. So I did that 3 times. You know, one over the other, and in between each one, I wrapped a bit of 40 gauge to stabilize everything. I took a bit of spit, ran my fingers, combed them through the bit of ribbon wire, and once everything was nice and tight, and I could see that it was, I always, you know, cut off the bottom ends of my ribbon wire. And I like to use scissors for this. CoilMaster sent me a bunch of stuff, and now I've got an extra pair of scissors. And the truth be told, I never really liked their scissors anyway. They're little fold-out scissors. I'm not really a fan, so I don't really care what happens to them. I just use those to cut my ribbon. Works fine. So once I've got all my ribbons situated, I put the ribbon onto the end of the swivel tools, and then I wrapped a little more 40 gauge around the end of the staple stack and put it onto the chuck of the drill. I fused over all that, making a staple coil, just a regular staple coil right now of 36 gauge. And the reason I'm making that staple coil so big, like 36 gauge, is kind of, I mean, it's standard. You know, I usually go a little lower, like 40, something like that is usually where I like to make my staples. But this one I wanted to go with 36. And the reason is this: after I created my staple coil, I added 2 frames of 28 gauge, and I was using this knifethol? I don't remember what it's called. I don't have it in front of me. Knifethol? I don't know. Anyway, Jeff over at Coil Society sent it on over for me to try out when I ordered a bunch of my stainless steel wire. He's awesome, dude. So I looped that bit of 28 gauge knifethol through the swivel tools, brought them down to the end of the wire, tightened everything up by the swivel tools so it's good and compacted together, and then I wrapped a little bit more 40 gauge around the end before I split the leads and pushed it on into the chuck of my drill. From there, I used a key ring to keep everything together and stabilize it all while I groove fused in between the gaps. There's tiny little nondescript, insignificant gaps of the 36 gauge wire that's over this staple core with 46 gauge. And this is my first time ever working with 46 gauge. Let me tell you, it is just like working with hair. It breaks so easy. So you gotta be super careful working with gauges that high. They have a tendency just to be like working with hair. It's like nothing. It was like working with my wife's hair. It's like nothing. So what amazed me was how easy this build was, especially when I got to this part, the groove fusing. I always thought that that would be really difficult, but no, it's actually pretty automated. It's kind of like, as long as you keep that wire at a 90-degree angle perpendicular to the core wires that you're fusing over, it pretty much lands in between those gaps no problem every single time. It takes nothing to do this. I mean, this build took me about 30 minutes to put together. It really wasn't anything. I was kind of shocked at how easy it all came together. I wrapped it up in a 3.5mm bit and I put it on into the Pulse RDA.
Come with me, hell is on its way. I'll take you to the sea on a nightmare getaway. The lights go out, the body starts to shake, the fear set in, no one ever stays. Nobody loves you like I do. Bury me in the dirt, poke holes so I can breathe. Hold me like a friend and make your tricks on me. Nobody loves you like I do. Nobody loves you like I do.
Sadly, it's the stainless steel, the knife ethanol, I don't know what it is, but the build ohms out super low. It is 0.08 ohms basically, and my only thought was to throw it onto this K-box, you know, from Kanger. My squonker, of course I'm gonna throw it on this thing. Problem is, this doesn't fire below 0.1. Someone needs to make a decent mod that's a squonker that fires below low, you know, low squonker. I need one. And I mean, I love a DNA 200, but or $250 even, but that price point, I want something like a Gene chip or something like that in there that can do that. Come on, make it happen, people, make it happen. However, one thing that is awesome is CoilMaster sent me on over this guy. This is the 521 Plus tab, and it's what I've always wanted. It is a dual battery ohm meter. Yeah, as silly as that sounds, I've always wanted a dual battery ohm meter so I could actually fire the builds that I like to build. I mean, a single battery ohm meter, it just doesn't have the capability of doing what I need it to do. It's late. All my mods that are gonna fire this thing are upstairs and Waffles is sleeping and I don't wanna wake her. So yeah, vaping on this right now. It works. It's a yummy vape. I really can't wait to throw this onto a DNA 200 or the Gene chip mod, I forget what it's called right now, and see what it can do, because it's a very, very tasty vape. And I'm gonna have to put something else in here to actually complete the review, because, I mean, of course I gotta try out the squonking function. I mean, that's what this one's all about. I gotta say though, the airflow, I really like it. Really like the airflow, just first impressions. And I love the build space. Throwing a build in here is super, super easy. I gotta say, I really like the depth of the post holes on this thing. A lot of postless RDAs, you kind of have to guesstimate and clip and hope. With this one, for some reason, it just made it really, really easy. I think they're just extra deep or something. I don't know, but I like it. Wait, we have pure awesomeness. Quick update, the coil, yeah. Oh, it loosened up a little bit, and yeah, we've got it at 0.09 ohms, and the K-Box is willing to fire it. Yes. Not to mention, I've been really excited to play with the K-Box again, because Polly G, the man from Down Under, sent me this. This is what was in that weird thing that I wasn't sure what it was. I mentioned in the last episode of CoilWars, he wrote me and told me that this was inside of that bit of, you know, foam, and it's the missing piece for my K-Box. I lost this piece a long time ago, and he was an awesome, awesome soul and sent me this piece that he made to go here. So, Polly, you're the man right now. Thank you. I'm vaping on that Seduction from the Indulgence line that we reviewed the other day. Good stuff. Awesome. Just awesome. Anyway, guys, that is indeed a wrap. Until next time, I'm your homeboy Josh. Vape on, vapors.